and welcome to episode 3 of The Ask Box, a podcast about ye old days on Tumblr. I'm Allegra Rosenberg. I used to get like 15 asks a day, and today I'll be talking with my friend Jan FKA Froghat about her days in the early Sherlock fandom. The Ask Box is up on iTunes and Spotify, so please subscribe. And we're on Twitter at The Ask Box. I don't know why I'm saying we, it's just me. Here we are, episode 3 of The Ask Box, a Tumblr podcast. I have with me my good friend Jan, who was one of the first people I ever met on Tumblr. And today we're going to be talking about the Sherlock fandom specifically.
God.
So thank you so much for coming on the show.
No problem.
So I wanted to, I start off every episode by asking, how did you first join Tumblr? Why did you join? When did you join?
Oh, God. I started Tumblr in around 2009. I think it was when it had, I don't know when it started, but I'm guessing it was within the first 2 years.
Uh-huh.
And I don't really remember why I joined. I just did. I used to be a part of a different kind of social network where people would go and journal online.
Uh-huh.
And when that was shut down, I was just looking for something else that was similar, and Tumblr was the only thing at the time that was like that.
What
That
was
wasn't MySpace.
right? What was the other social network? I'm curious.
It was called My Dear Diary. It was literally an online diary,
Oh, wow.
and people would just post their very personal things on there. So I guess that was a prelude to how I was on my Tumblr, because everybody on that other social network was very frank and open and honest about everything that was going on in their lives. And a lot of it, now that I look back on it, a lot of it was fake. People just pretending that they had these super interesting lives.
Uh-huh.
And I was just there like, oh yeah, I went to school today, yada, yada, yada.
Uh-huh.
But it was just fun to witness everybody else and their life, whether pretend or real.
Mm-hmm.
And Tumblr was really similar to that. A lot of people over exaggerated what was going on in their lives.
Uh-huh.
And then after a while, I got involved into fandom type blogging.
Mm-hmm. So on Tumblr, it just started out for you mostly as a diary to replace that other site, and then you sort of got from there into fandom.
Right, yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, at the
I've never heard of that
it,
other site. Was it pretty small?
yeah, it was really really not a big thing. As far as I know, I have never met any other person that has been on that website.
Uh-huh.
And the friends that I made back then, I have no idea where they are. I remember of one, and I think I might still have them on some social network, but
Uh-huh.
I'm sure, like, either they blocked me, I blocked them, something happened, but I'm like completely closed off to everything. I recently Googled it because you had mentioned online that you were looking for people's first,
Yeah.
right?
For
So
my thesis, yeah.
yes. So I went back and I tried to find them, and all I found was this website of people trying to somehow get their diaries back,
Uh-huh.
because when the website shut down, it was completely purged. Like, there's no way you can get it anymore. And the
Mhm.
website was posted like I a long time ago, but it was saying that if you wanted a file of
Mhm.
your blog, you had until like a certain date to request it, and after that it would be gone forever.
Wow. Yeah, I mean that's the sort of stuff that I was really interested in for my thesis project. And for those listening who don't know, my thesis project was like an interview sort of online museum of people's first or early online community. So that definitely falls into that. That's a really interesting
Yeah.
story. So nobody else from that community migrated over to Tumblr.
Not that I know of,
Uh-huh.
because the website was shut down so randomly, and I don't think I didn't get to see where everyone else migrated
Right,
to.
right.
Mhm.
That's interesting. So were the first people you followed on Tumblr like other diary type blogs?
There, for the most part, it was just aesthetic photos,
Uh-huh.
people posting. Like, it was journal posts with like a picture of flowers and
Right.
things like that. People that I don't even really know by name. At the very beginning, I would talk to a couple who would post their relationship online,
Uh-huh.
but they broke up. That was a no go. Like I don't talk to them anymore,
Uh-huh.
obviously. But then I started seeing a lot of Harry Potter people posting,
Uh-huh.
which back then Harry Potter was the only fandom I was really a part of
Right.
or that I knew of. Um, because I would obviously get on things like what was it called, the
MuggleNet.
MuggleNet, and
Yeah.
yeah, so it was the only other fandom I was really exposed to. So when I saw people posting about Harry Potter, there was a short time where that's what I would post about, but then it quickly evolved into everything else.
Right. So, you found out about through, you started watching these other shows through finding out about them on Tumblr in the first place.
Yeah, and back then Tumblr was super different. They had that Tumblrity thing
Right.
where people would like upvote your post, and then depending on how many people would, I guess, interact with your post, you would get
Mhm.
points on how cool you were. So yeah, it was bizarre, but through that, that's where I found people posting about fandoms.
Uh-huh. So what were some of the first other fandoms you got into after Harry Potter?
I guess Doctor Who was the
Yeah.
immediate after. Well, no, I lie. It was Mighty Boosh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Mighty Boosh was the first thing I sort of got into in the Tumblr fandom. Oh, in the Tumblr community, and
For those that don't
after
know, what's Mighty Boosh?
it was an, I guess, a sketch comedy. Was it sketch comedy? It
Yeah, it
was
was
like
like
a
a
old comedy show that was from the BBC,
uh-huh.
and it was based on an old radio show that they turned into a comedy show with Noel Fielding and Julian Barrett.
Yeah. And at that time, was it still on the air? Were there still like new episodes coming out?
No, no. By
Uh-huh.
the time I was watching it, I remember when it was airing. I think I was in eighth grade,
Uh-huh.
ninth grade, or sort of. So it aired like a few years before I became a fan of the show.
Uh-huh. So from there, then Doctor Who.
Yeah, it just kind of snowballed into a bunch of other British TV shows.
Yeah.
I got into Black Book, Peep Show. Um, well, Doctor Who was the obvious
Yeah.
thing that you would follow after that because it was such a huge thing in British television.
Uh-huh. I remember
So,
you were the first you were the first like personal blog I followed on Tumblr that wasn't like, like a fuck yeah blog or something like that. And I remember your URL was like you're a piece of TARDIS.
yes, that was my handle. Before that, I was, I think, cracking the wall. So it
Oh
was around
yeah.
that the
Maybe
11th.
maybe I followed you when you were that.
Yeah,
I don't remember. But yeah, I
I
mean,
honestly don't remember the order of the handles. To be honest, I would change them quite often.
right.
But the Doctor Who fandom was pretty intense
Yeah,
because they
it
had
really
so much
was.
material.
And that was when I remember I joined when series 5 was airing. And it was a pretty intense, and it was a small community at that time too.
I actually think I found when I was looking back on my old stuff, I was looking and I saw the post of when you followed me. And I was like, oh my God, I was so fangirling over you at the time. I don't remember. Were you a big name by the time? I don't,
What was my URL then?
it
I
was
don't know.
stop it's ginger time.
No, because I remember I followed you before that when my URL was like TARDIS girl. And I feel like we knew each other before that. But I actually don't know. Maybe we have totally different memories at that time. Because by the
Well,
time
the screenshot I found, I mean, it's a
uh,
screenshot, so it doesn't
uh,
change, and it said stop it's ginger time. But I
that's
have a
so
feeling
weird.
you had just changed it because when I went to your blog, I remember like complimenting you on your URL because I thought it was really clever.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, maybe I don't know then. Maybe my memories are mixed up. But yeah, I was TARDIS girl, and then I was Rory Pond, and then I was Stop It's Ginger Time. I think by the time I had changed it to Stop It's Ginger Time was when I was posting my YouTube videos, and that was my YouTube channel URL, and I wanted
Yeah,
it my Tumblr URL to be the same. So that's probably why I changed it. That was probably must have been like mid to late 2010
it
because
was
I
like
remember my
your
first.
brand for a very long time.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Big time. I'm still trying to chase that away. I feel like I'll forever be Sapphish Ginger Time to some people. But so yeah, I mean, and I want to talk to you about Sherlock since I know you had some big experiences in that fandom. So
Yeah.
were you one of the people? I mean, were you one of the people that watched the first episode as it aired? Because I remember that's what I did.
Yeah, I did. I guess it was because we were well, I was into Doctor Who, and well,
Right.
obviously Mark Gatiss was involved, and so was
And
Stephen
Stephen
Moffat.
Moffat, yeah. So it was like his new show.
Yeah, so when it was announced, everybody was waiting for it at like before it even started because of
Hmm.
his connections to the Doctor Who fandom.
Right.
Yeah, but I did watch the first episode as it aired, and I've been rewatching the episodes recently just to
Uh
kind of
huh.
go back to that era of nostalgia. And
Uh huh.
I mean, it has it like it's still good. You know?
That
I
first
will-
season was amazing. Like just
yes.
objectively speaking, it's great television.
You know, weirdly enough, I never saw the second season,
Really.
which you would think like I was so involved in that whole fandom and everything.
Uh huh.
But and I was super excited for it, but when kind of shit hit the fan with what happened, I was just super put off by everything Sherlock
Oh yeah.
after that. And it
Yeah.
was right
And,
before the season aired too.
right. And I mean, to be fair, there was a long time in fandom time between the first
Yeah.
season and the second season. To me,
Mhm.
it's interesting how much came of just 3 episodes
Right.
in that time. Like this huge fandom sprang up over so little canonical material, relatively
Right.
speaking.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. Like it was only 3 episodes.
What was the atmosphere like in the fandom, like, as those episodes were airing and, like, immediately afterwards? People were really excited.
Yeah. I mean, I guess at the time I didn't really think less. I know there was I've seen posts where I still thought Stephen Moffat was okay, but then part of me was still kind of hating on him at the time already. But when the
Uh-huh,
new season came out, I was like, oh yeah, he's got it. You know, this time he did something awesome. There was no
uh-huh,
downfalls to that season. It was all really, really well thought out, really well shot, planned,
right.
everything. And when the episodes were coming out,
Y
I mean, it's kind of embarrassing to think back on it now, but I mean, most of the interest was really aesthetic because
right.
the material has been around for so long, and
Yeah.
the fact that it was modernized and you had Benedict Cumberbatch with his voice, everybody was super obsessed over him, and it quickly
Uh-huh,
became less about, you know, mystery and the canon material or the the changing it to a modern time, and it became more about the actors and how they look, the that one expression he did in that one scene in this one episode, and it was just
uh-huh,
so minuscule, the details that people would cling on to, and it was
right.
crazy. Like how we said, it was only 3 episodes and people hung on to every single detail they could because of how little material there was.
I mean, it's something about the material that did exist incited the kind of passion that is seen more often in shows that have been around for many more years with many more
Mhm.
episodes. I think the ratio there of canon to passion has really never been matched since that first
Right.
season of Sherlock.
I think the only thing I can think of that's been similar has been when the Social Network
Yes.
fandom
Yeah.
was crazy, like huge and based on one movie, and I never became a part of it. I haven't actually seen the Social Network to this day, but it was intense, and I had a lot of friends who were involved in that fandom, and I was like, "Oh God, who's Eduardo? I've never heard his name before in my life." But
Right.
people were really into that, and that's similar to what happened with Sherlock because it was only 3 episodes, and people got so obsessed with the material.
Right. And I think I mean it's crazy to think back. That was Benedict Cumberbatch's like first real role. Like that was how he
Yeah,
was
the his
known.
first big. And it's at the time everyone was more obsessed about Benedict than they were about Martin. And I
Mhm.
had seen Martin in several other things. He had come out in The Office and, you know,
Hitchhiker's Guide.
yeah, several other projects that I had seen him in. So I guess I was more into him than I was Benedict just because of my own personal need to like not follow the crowd, or maybe
Uh-huh.
like be involved in something that wasn't so intense, because people obsessed with Benedict were so intense, the Cumberbitches or
Mm-hmm.
whatever they call themselves.
Oh yeah.
So when the Benedict Cumberbatch sexual frustration blog came out, like they started before I did. And
Uh-huh.
I was like, this is so annoying, because I would go, like, people would post, like, because I would make my own content. I would make GIFs and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So they would post it onto, they would reblog it onto the Benedict Cumberbatch websites, and completely ignore the fact that the photo set was really about Martin Freeman. And at the time, it was really frustrating to me, and that's kind of why we ended up making the Martin Freeman blog.
So you had the counterpart, the Martin Freeman sexual frustration blog?
Yes, I started it with my friend
Uh-huh.
Valeria.
Mhm.
No, Rosalia. Well, Valeria was the, like, she was a friend, but it ended up being Rosalia who helped me co-manage it, and Valeria was the one who would kind of supply material, because she was super obsessed with Martin, but I guess she wasn't too, I guess, technologically competent,
Right.
or like she didn't know how to make a layout and all, and handle all the
Yeah.
technical side of stuff. So me and Rosalia ended up putting our names on the blog, and that was a thing. And then I don't even know how long it was before it happened, but they posted a message to Rosalia, but it was to her personal blog. She used to be an army doctor.
Mhm.
That was her handle. So her
Uh-huh.
personal blog itself was pretty Martin based,
Uh-huh.
and Martin Freeman posted a picture with her handle on it. And it was crazy because, I mean, at the time, Martin Freeman's sexual frustration wasn't really a big thing. It was barely starting out.
Uh-huh.
And all the attention kind of went to Rosalia's personal blog because, well, it was her handle on the
Right.
paper.
So
And I
what did
remember
it say? What did he say to
it,
her?
it said, I heart an army doctor.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it had a JW as the sign off at the bottom. So it was kind of
Oh
like in
wow.
character or whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember we freaked out about it, but at the end of the day, like I had nothing to do with that, like I
Right.
didn't have my name on it. So I wasn't really affected by it. I know she got a lot of attention from that, but it kind of passed over really quickly. But then a few weeks later, I got a text from my good friend Taylor. At the time, she was I am Maurice Moss from the IT crowd. That was
Uh-huh.
her handle. Well, she actually tweeted me, but I mean, I didn't have internet at the time, so it came to me as a text. And she said, "Oh yeah, Martin Freeman loves you." And I was like, "What?" But in my head, I was thinking, "Oh my God, what if the same thing happened that happened to Rosalia?"
Yeah.
And I was out and about at the time, so I thought about it, didn't really freak out, and then I got another tweet from her that said something like, "Yeah, Martin posted a picture and it has your name on it." And I like literally fell to the ground. I mean, at the time it was super, I don't know whether to feel embarrassed or excited. It was bizarre. Like it's
Mhm.
not really something you would imagine happening. It's
Right.
like even if something previously had happened to someone that I knew, I thought, that's the end of it, whatever.
Right.
But when I was able to get online and see the picture, it was crazy. I got home, I logged on, I had thousands and thousands of messages. Well, not thousands, probably hundreds, right? But I'm
Uh-huh.
exaggerating. It was a lot. It kept coming in, and people made the connection that me and Rosalia's name was on it. So obviously, we were the two names that were on the Martin Freeman blog.
Right.
And you have to understand, on that blog was weird stuff. People sent in fan fiction about themselves with Martin,
Mhm.
and it was just weird. But like to think of him getting on and seeing that stuff and clicking through to our own blogs because he had to have done that,
Right.
it was, I don't know. Even thinking back on it, like it's been years and I still can't wrap my head around it.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
that's crazy. So
embarrassing.
he posted pictures with the personal blog handles of both you and your co-runner of the fan blog, just of his
No,
own
no.
volition.
He posted a picture with our names,
Oh,
not with our
wow.
handles. So it was even more than that. Like he spent enough time to know that both me and Rosalia spoke Spanish,
Uh-huh.
and he found both our names, and he misspelled the word quiero in his little message, and it was just so weird and bizarre. And he did it on his own volition. Yeah, like I don't think anybody had, he didn't have any online presence. He didn't have a Twitter. He doesn't have
Uh,
anything of that kind. So there wasn't anybody sending him the link to our blog or, anything like that.
where did he post
And
the picture?
it was to a Twitter account of Paul McGuigan. I think he was like a director of one of the
Uh-huh.
episodes or
Uh-huh.
something like that. He posted it with a message from a friend, and he put hashtag Sherlock, and the picture was there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's a lot of layers. I mean, that means you
yeah,
must have gone to some effort to get it out there to have someone else post it on his account on his
exactly.
behalf.
Yeah, it's just thinking about how many things had to happen for that to happen.
Right. And I think that's really interesting because obviously it meant that the fandom had reached a kind of critical mass for a person that had never really experienced that before. I mean, I know you said you'd seen him on other shows and stuff, but the Sherlock thing was very huge and must have been new for both of the stars of that show. And maybe for
Yeah,
Martin in particular, he was like, "Oh, this is crazy. This is the first time this has happened. I better show my gratitude." Probably not knowing how much his life would
yeah,
change after that show and how much of that he would get.
yeah.
I mean, he was
I
on, he's been in so many things since then and he has like, a lot of fans now. But back
Right,
then it's interesting that you were sort of at the forefront of what must have been a big change in his life.
right. And it was enough for him to like call us out by name.
Uh-huh.
And when he tweeted it, at first, a lot of the messages I got were very excited and supportive. A lot of the,
Mhm.
friends that I had made sending me messages. But then after a while, a few days passed, and it eventually turned into a lot of people angry that we were, invading his, I don't know, personal life, that we were posting nasty things to the internet. When really, at like the blog itself was more us um just kind of facilitating everybody else's things. We
Right.
didn't really make most of the stuff ourselves. It was all based on submissions and
Uh-huh.
people sending in their own personal um fan fiction stories. And we had a thing called, oh god, what was it called? It was like TMI Tuesday or something, where
Uh-huh.
people would send in messages and all we would do is just post them without any comment.
Uh-huh.
But it made people really angry, and I got a lot of really horrible messages after the initial wave kind of died down,
Mhm.
and
That's
it
I
was
mean, do you think that there was an element of jealousy there that the Benedict Cumberbatch blog didn't get similar recognition from their
we.
object of affection?
I have a feeling that was a main thing because the Benedict Cumberbatch blog was a big thing, but
Uh-huh.
and we were barely. I think when it happened, we had like 300 followers or
Oh,
anything, and
wow, yeah.
then suddenly we had like 1,000, and it was getting a lot more attention than the Benedict blog. So yeah, I have a feeling a lot of those were from people who were involved in that other community,
Uh-huh.
or that were they were thinking that the attention being on Martin kind of took away from the fact that Benedict also had a big fandom and they weren't getting the acknowledgement. Like I remember seeing a bunch of videos of people going onto TV shows like the Graham Norton and themselves, introducing themselves to Benedict Cumberbatch and being like, "Yeah, I'm a Cumberbitch," and he didn't really pander to them. I guess
Right,
he acknowledged them, but it wasn't like he was posting, his love for his fans.
right.
online.
I
But
mean,
yeah,
that is super interesting. I mean, like given that he was the show is called Sherlock, and sort of
yeah.
he's technically the star, and Martin is the one who is showing more appreciation, probably because maybe he wasn't expecting to have that kind of attention, the same kind of attention as the star would be expected to have.
But Benedict did. I mean, he did get a lot of attention. I think the fact
Right.
that his was more intense kind of
Mm-hmm.
led him to kind of try to back away from it a bit,
Right.
because he also ended up breaking up with his longtime girlfriend around this time, and people were
Mm-hmm.
like obsessed with the fact of them because suddenly he's available. And of course, Martin had his longtime partner that
Right.
it got into super personal details about them. And Benedict, and I mean, now he's what, Doctor Strange, and he's doing all
Right.
these big things, and so is Martin. But
Yeah.
I feel like both of them were launched into their careers because of this show.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And since then, though, I feel like Martin has gotten more flack because uh, he says stupid things in public. So I think Benedict being more reserved in his, I guess, interactions with people
Mm-hmm.
has somehow led to him getting bigger roles or
Right.
being more popular
Mm-hmm.
over time, because Martin has had those like periods of people hating him and then people loving him again and hating him.
Right.
It's a
That's really
cancel
interesting.
culture.
So this all this stuff went down right before the second season aired, and you didn't end up watching it. Did you watch how the fandom reacted to it, and did you sort of interact with it, from a further level away, and see how the fandom was changing? Because I think by the time the second season rolled around, Sherlock fandom had become its own sort of, living, breathing thing that people started to like make fun of a bit.
Well, by the time the second season came out, I was already kind of stepping into the supernatural fandom. So
Right.
I guess that also affected the fact that I didn't watch the second season because I was so into this other thing.
Mhm.
But I mean, I was aware of what happened in the first episode of the second season. And I think
Mhm.
that was the episode where there was a character that was like in a fandom, kind of, right?
I have zero memory.
There
None
was,
at all.
I think there was a character that was kind of portraying a super fanatic of Sherlock,
Okay.
and it kind of involved fan fiction. Like there was fan fiction somewhere in the storyline about how people
Okay.
were making up stories that Sherlock and Moriarty were making out on the rooftop or something like that. It was
Yeah.
bizarre, and I was seeing all of this from a third party not watching standpoint, and I was just seeing a lot of people angry because it felt like they were making fun of people that were obsessed with the show.
Right.
Like the show itself was kind of telling the people that were obsessed with the show that they were comedy for
Yeah.
them, that they
Yeah.
weren't taken seriously. And
Always a
like,
dangerous path to tread for a
right.
storyline.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people were upset by that, and that itself, that reaction was enough for me to say like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna watch that season.
Oh,
With
yeah.
And like I kind of want to see, because the picture that he posted was taken while they were on set. So I
Right.
want to see that scene that they were filming just so that I can, I don't know, maybe find closure or something, because I've never seen it myself.
Uh-huh.
And but I never have. But I'm rewatching it now, so maybe I'll get to it.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think that also something that I think is interesting is how in the time between the first season and the second season, which was like it's a long time by television
Hmm.
standards, the fandom went through so many changes, and it sort of was able, I mean, I don't want to say like curdle, but it really sort of was it was very insular, and it
Hmm.
maybe evolved in ways that wouldn't have happened if the second season had aired like right away.
Right. And I think the story itself, I don't think the show would have done an episode with a character like that in their
Mhm.
second season if it hadn't been such a long time, because it allowed the fandom to grow into something similar to that. And I
Yeah.
mean, you could write it off as them doing a modern adaptation of the fact that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle hated his fandom and wanted to kill off Sherlock. But I
Right.
think it was a direct influence of the fandom that grew within the time that people
Yeah.
were waiting for the second season.
Right. And I think something that people learned about Moffat pretty quickly, after his tenures on Doctor Who and Sherlock began, is that he, despite being a fanboy himself, did not hold fans in such high regard,
Yeah.
especially female fans. And you can say what
Mhm.
you want about his storylines. I mean, I think he writes great dialogue. I think that, there's a lot of good, but also like he has a problem, I think, with
Yeah.
condescension and with looking down on people who interact with media a different way than he does. And I
Mhm.
think that came off in his Doctor Who episodes, yeah, and in Sherlock as well.
Yeah, and a lot of people only saw the Sherlock show to
Hmm.
begin with because of his name
Right.
was attached to it. And nowadays, I don't think it would have that same kind of positive influence on people to watch the show because they've been kind of wronged so many times.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I mean, he starts high for sure. I mean, I think
Yeah,
that the fact that Sherlock aired directly after series 5 of Doctor Who finished, it was like Doctor Who finished in like late June and then Sherlock started up in July of 2010, I think it was.
yeah.
And so that sort of was like a direct
In-
slide because people really
mhm,
enjoyed series 5 of Doctor Who. I thought it was great. And so
yeah,
that fact combined with the fact that the first series of Sherlock was also great set people up for a lot of disappointment.
yeah. And was there a season 3? I don't even know.
Oh, Sherlock?
Yeah,
Yeah, there's been, like, 4 and then, like, a special or 2, I think. I did
yeah,
not keep up after the 2nd season,
yeah.
so I was like, "This is trash."
I
Well,
have
it's not
no.
trash, but yeah.
Yeah, like you didn't have that same want of watching that you did when it started.
Exactly,
And
'cause
I don't think the following seasons held up to how good the first season was.
yeah, I mean, that first season is sort of like this self-contained gem of really strong plotting, and
Mhm.
again, just the chemistry between the actors was so powerful that, I liked your comparison to The Social Network because that's another movie where it's really not about the story. It's
Yeah,
really not about the characters. It's about the script and the actors
yeah,
and how they play those characters. And that allows for fans who have this, who take their most enjoyment out of character interaction to receive so much more out of the movie than what's on the surface. The same goes, I think, for the first series of Sherlock.
yeah. Although in the rewatch, I've noticed that there's so much queer baiting. I hadn't noticed in the first season. And, like my own interactions with fandoms throughout the years, there's
Mhm.
always been some sort of slash fiction that I'm into. Whether
Yeah.
or not that's appropriate of me is another discussion, but it's always been something that I end up reading after I finish the
Mhm.
show. But
Mhm.
the I guess in that show, it was pushed so hard, and you didn't notice. Well, I didn't notice up until the rewatch right now how
Mhm.
intense. Like every other scene has a reference to that people thinking that they're together.
Uh-huh.
But
It's slathered on thick, as they would
yes,
say.
yes, and it's like they were pushing for something like this to happen.
Again, that's something that if the show was made for the first time today, that would be
Yeah,
different. But also, you can't really say that because the fact that that show had such an outsized impact in terms of fandom, in terms of influence, means that it paved the way for, I would think, and the fact that that element of it, that close relationship, was what brought out so much of the
yeah,
fandom. That's something that shows since then have really tried to copy.
yeah, yeah. Especially with
So,
well, I guess I was in Supernatural after that, and Supernatural
mhm,
kind of followed the same. Although Supernatural was already airing by the time I started, so I don't think they
yeah,
were trying to copy that. But the shows kind of caught on that fandoms respond more when there's something like that in there.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think Tumblr specifically, the communities on Tumblr really played a role in people realizing that that's what made a lot of these that was the common denominator
Hmm.
between so many of these shows, Supernatural included, Sherlock included.
And I think the fact that the blog that we started wasn't so much about Benedict and Martin or John and Sherlock.
Mhm,
It was about Martin Freeman being found
mhm,
attractive by a bunch of girls
uh-huh,
was something that maybe Martin was keen on highlighting just because it was,
Oh,
it
interesting.
wasn't like, I feel he had, I don't know if he has shown distaste, but I feel the fact that people were drawing naked pictures of him with Benedict Cumberbatch,
Mhm.
it quickly became a sore subject. And the fact that there was all these girls that were like, "Oh yeah, he's cute, he's hot, whatever,"
Mhm.
was something that he was kind of,
Yeah, he without bringing anybody else into it, he liked
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. That's a great point. It's really interesting. So as Tumblr, as more people joined Tumblr, and you joined more fandoms, and Tumblr introduced new features,
Mhm.
how did you see like the interactions that people were have changing in terms of just the basic mechanics? Were you sending a lot of asks? Were you reblogging? Were you making a lot of original content?
I enjoyed making my own content, but for the most part, it turned less into, as time went on, it turned less into making content for the blog and more into just
Mm,
talking to friends. I think it became more of a
mhm.
conversational platform for me. I
Absolutely.
wasn't talking so much in asks, weirdly enough. It was mostly just through posts because I feel like the
Uh-huh.
comedic element of it was, I don't know, funnier. You were almost even performing. Like if you had a funny response to what someone said, you would want to put that publicly so that other people could reblog it. And or
Yeah.
like it was because I would have my own personal conversations with people, obviously. But when you were reblogging people, it was more like kind of bouncing off each other, improv comedy.
Yeah, and wanting other people to see that you had
Yeah.
friends and that you were having these that's a great point. I think before they introduced like private replies to asks
Mhm.
and then chats after that, people would just have full conversations just through reblogs and reblogs and
And the
reblogs.
crazy thing is, a lot of those weren't facilitated easily by the website itself. So people had to,
Uh-huh.
make an effort. They would screenshot a reply and then put a reply to the reply in there.
Uh-huh.
That would be a screenshot, and it was just a big mess. But I remember I had a whole folder of screenshots of things that people, because I would end up doing it to make the post. So I ended up
Uh-huh.
deleting it, which I now regret, but I remember I had a
Right.
whole folder, one folder for each friend that I had of just different conversations that we had.
Oh,
And I remember
I love
yours
that.
was called oh god, what was the name of that allergy medicine that's called Allegra?
Oh, yeah. Fexofenadine, Allegra D.
And it
Yeah.
was the tagline for whatever that medicine was. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I don't think I think I kept screenshots of asks from people. I don't
Yeah.
think I ever kept screenshots from replies. So that's really cute. Yeah, it was a lot of really jacked up shortcuts to get around Tumblr's sort of bad
Yeah.
formatting so you could just talk to your friends.
And after the whole the horrible messages I got, I ended up changing my account. So
Right.
I created a whole new thing, and the old account had around 3,000 followers or something.
Uh-huh.
Not,
Which was a
well,
lot
yeah,
back
a
then.
lot, but not in terms to other people. But it was still quite a few people would reply to my things, and I
Right.
ended up changing to another account and rebranding myself as Froghat, and it was just
Right.
a complete 180. Like the interactions I had with people um, were limited because there wasn't so many people that were following me, and I kind of made it so that a lot of the people that were on the other blog wouldn't follow me because I knew a lot of those
Uh-huh.
people were following me, like kind of hate following. So I just kind of messaged people that I knew, sent
Mhm.
them a link, and it
Mhm.
was after that it was a lot more subdued, like in terms of my exposure to big fandom, and I tried to keep it small
Yeah.
after.
So yeah, I mean that definitely changed stuff for you. I feel like a lot of people had those kinds of events that changed that or made them think in new ways about how they were on a website like that because there's
Mhm.
so many moving parts. Well, okay, so you still use Tumblr today, I would assume.
Yeah, I do, but
Yeah, I mean,
I don't really talk. I just reblog
yeah.
things every so often.
Yeah,
Sometimes you're like one of the only people that I still follow
from the
from
old days.
yeah.
I feel like a lot of people who were on, in that early era of Tumblr as teens, like you and me, never quite broke free of it and are still on it, but not in the ways that we used to be. It's sort of just like, a default at this point.
Yeah. And I see kind of like bits of what I used to be involved in
Hmm.
whenever I see some like big posts being reblogged onto my dash, and
Yeah.
I'll see someone posting about Super Hulock and I'm like, what era am I in? What is it? And it's bizarre, but
Yeah. I mean, it truly never dies.
yeah,
I think that's beautiful.
it never dies.
Never
And
dies.
recently, like well, I think it was a year ago, I messaged Martin's wife, or I guess
Mhm,
longtime partner. I don't know if they're married, but I messaged her with the picture that he sent me,
mhm.
and I was like, "Oh hey, yeah, I remember. Like, I don't know if you remember me, but Martin sent me this picture, and I just wanted to." Say that it makes me happy because I did print it out and it is sitting next to my desk, even if
Uh-huh.
it gives me a lot of embarrassment. I mean, it was the good old days, and to think that something as stupid as a sexual frustration blog was enough for like a big name celebrity to just send me a
Uh-huh.
message. I obviously sent it to Walgreens and have it printed on my desk,
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah.
and she responded with, "Oh yeah, I remember that," and she followed me. But like since then, I've unfollowed her, and now I have this weird like feeling of guilt because she's still following me, and I know she's probably had me muted, to be honest. But,
Yeah.
you know,
I think that's funny. I mean, yeah, the good old days, that's for sure.
yeah,
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really love what you had to say. I think those are some really interesting stories. So thank you.
thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. The Askbox theme song is Full Screen by Adult Mom, who, spoiler alert, is also next week's guest. See you next week for an exploration of Bright Eyes fandom on Tumblr with Steph from Adult Mom.
The warmer months being satisfied.